everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Black Tea, the podcast that is all about Black women in advertising, hosted by me, Michelle Lawrence, and presented by Muse by Cleo. So excited to be here today with a good colleague of mine, Mary Pryor. What's up, Mary?
Hello.
Hi.
Internet.
Hi. Please tell the people what you do and where you're based.
I'm based on the Eastern Seaboard, originally from Detroit. I have a few of my own businesses, but I work full-time in advertising, and I have my own businesses relating to plant medicine, development, marketing, and advocacy, and fitness business as well.
Ooh, I want to hear all about that. Specifically within advertising, what's your role and how did you find your way into advertising?
I became an advertising person really in 2011. Yes. I currently lead a strategy department at a agency. The department is mostly Black, which is great, but also something where I am very protective of that as well, because there's not that many of us that get to do great things in anything because we're Black. And racism, really. Well, racism is the biggest reason, but that's it for another podcast. And I am back in advertising after starting my own business, which I won a Cleo on my own for. Cool. in the cannabis marketing space, because somebody asked me to come back.
Okay.
That's why I'm back.
Wow, one favor. You're just one favor away from that, from us not having you around at work. I love that. All right, so how did you get into advertising in the first place? What kind of steered you there? Was it having your own business and wanting to market your own business that originally kind of propelled you into the space?
Honestly, I was running away from broadcast, and I thought that broadcast was moving too slow, and I thought advertising was moving a bit faster. And now that I'm older, I realize it's faster means like crazy fucking hours, and everybody thinks that they're tripping.
Yeah.
But back then I was like, oh, it sounds fun. And that was like 2011. I worked at an agency that was like, we were churning out Facebook apps. That was a thing when everybody was down to play a game, as long as they gave Facebook access to their entire life journey.
Yeah.
Just so they can fucking play the game on the app.
Yeah.
I helped organize that movement a little bit.
Okay, great. Have you to thank.
Okay, no problem. Piracy, privacy, security kicked off there. So from there, like I've always been someone that's navigated between advertising and tech mostly.
Okay.
I left advertising in 2017 to dive more into cannabis work, which I still have a foothold in to a degree. But I've always been someone that's like lived a life where it's been advertising, tech, diversity, inclusion, talking about for forever, no matter what job I've had, person. I've been a social media influencer. So I've lived that life a little bit, the life that everybody like wants to live now, which I think is so interesting. But yeah, I'm just a Black girl that likes to work out, listen to music, and talk shit.
I love it. So what advice would you give to your pre-working in advertising self before you set a toe in advertising ever? If you could tell yourself then something now, what would you tell her?
Ask for more money.
That part.
I think that it's a problem that we don't talk about how much money we make.
Yeah.
I think it's a bad idea. I think that people who don't do that end up not making the money they should make. And I think that it's a system of oppression that people have learned.
Yeah.
That have been actually alive from the oppressor.
Right.
to make people that are melanated feel that they should be happy that they even just have a job.
That part. I hate that mentality of like, we just got to be grateful, you know? And I think the whole painting it as taboo or rude or crude to talk about money is definitely a part of that trick. That's just a trick. They just don't want us
Yeah.
to know what's really going on. And if we don't see each other's stubs, then we won't know.
Yeah, because white folks talk about money all the time.
Somebody's got to be, because they making it. It's out here, you know?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. All the time. So it's really big to like keep that in mind. But I always tell people like, you have to talk about this. And it's a big issue when we don't. And so there's a couple of things that I wish we would have like really been able to utilize to our benefit during 2020 that we're not going to be able to utilize now. But I think that a lot of people that are realizing that inflation is actually real and it's not a myth, that there's a quality of life that you have to continue to aspire to and rise to and want to exist in this current country or the way that it's framed.
And the wages are not keeping up.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Not even close.
That's real.
My generation, which is being a millennial, we are the ones that are experiencing the most obvious wealth gap, which is worse than what my parents had to deal with. So if I'm supposed to be making it, if I'm supposed to be the shit and I'm not, like,
right.
What does that mean? Anyway, I don't want to turn this into a political podcast. Continue. Sorry.
I mean, no, that's not political. Those are just numbers. That's just true. Yeah. It's hard out here for a millennial.
Every day I'm thinking, you know what, if I just get a BBL, I can go on the pole because I'm still flexible. So I think about that avidly as a thing that I know I can do.
Well, it's nice to have a fallback, you know?
I mean, there's doing hair, but like, I don't want to get carpal tunnel. There's like, I could start a gambling den.
You could.
I like how none of my ideas are rooted in like a solid line of developing like a credit line or anything. It's just all based on straight cash.
Just the green. So yeah, I mean, the industry, if you're listening, you guys really need to step it up or you're going to lose some real ones to the poll. That's the moral of that story. What is your hope, your biggest hope for the future of advertising and as an industry, as you think about like the work and the output and, you know, just what do you hope the most in terms of where this industry goes?
I thought this was going to be like a gossip podcast where we could talk about like Nelly and how we body shamed him for a
week. We'll get there.
He body shamed women for years. So welcome to the fold. What's my biggest hope? That's a really interesting. Here's what I'll say. If people aren't very intentional about reclaiming their power, and reclaiming their voice in a way that is consistent, in a way that is like meaningful, in a way that is fully aware that there is something happening that is making this more problematic to do, whether it's capitalism, whether it's whatever people want to call it. Racism is the main thing, but there's other attachments to that. Then we're going to be looking at a very mild lack of cultural context future. I don't think we're going to have that happen though, because as we see and deal with more migration from other like countries and other populations, the melting pot is arriving more and more, and it's freaking people who are anti-melting pot out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's going to be more ways and means to be intentionally inclusive so that you can just like get people to buy your stuff. So I think advertising, my biggest hope would be for more people to get paid what they need to get paid to justifiably do this work. And I would want more melanated people that are going to make them owners and leaders and CEOs and CMOs and partners, not just people who are just worker bees.
Yeah, that's facts.
Real basic stuff.
Mm-hmm. Should be.
Should be. It is. What is your hope?
You know, I ask this question a lot. Nobody ever asked it back to me. And it's hard for me to have a hope for the future of advertising, real talk. Like, because does it have a hope for my future? You know what I mean? Like I would stop short of saying I don't care, but I think what it is I have my hopes for advertising are more like my expectations for advertising. Here's what I need advertising to get together, to get itself together for people. But the future of advertising, I mean, advertising itself as an art form could fall off the face of the earth tomorrow and everyone would be fine. We don't provide anything that saves lives. I get that. So it's a weird question, and maybe I won't ask this anymore. Maybe I'll tweak it. But I think what I want most from advertising is what I want most from humanity, specifically American work culture, which is that I want it to understand its place in people's lives a little bit better. That it is not the end all be all, that is not the center of the universe, but that people are essentially wanting to spend their lives the way that they want to spend their lives. And advertising, for those of us who work in it, is a means to that end. What I hope for the future of advertising is that it understands a little bit more its place in that world. And rather than expecting people who work in it and participate in it to make it the center of their lives, that it becomes a way in which people can support the lives that they want to live. And that we go back to, or that we go towards a place of brands and the people who work on those brands, really focusing on how can we pour into people's lives, and affinity will kind of follow after that, as opposed to how much can we squeeze out of these people, the people who work for us, the people who we're advertising to, how much can we milk them for our own capitalistic gain? I would love for it to be more of like, people want to spend time with their families, people want to chase their passions. How can we kind of take the power of the corporations that we represent and make those things happen? I want it to become more human. I think that's my biggest hope. And I feel like in the same way that becoming more human requires you to address your biases, requires you to confront laden underbellies of your societies and cultures, to get to the root of issues, the same would have to happen in the advertising industry in order to get to a more human, caring, less selfish, less greedy place. That's easy, right? They can do that tomorrow. Oh, okay. Don't ask me nothing else.
You really got to sit with it and be like, what can I say where I won't get fired?
Right. Well, we'll see what happens with, I hope I'm fine if advertising falls off the face of the earth tomorrow, because I definitely said that, but whatever. They know what it is. Okay, so I'm so glad that when we first got on, you told me immediately that you won a Clio for your own work. You would be surprised how much I have to kind of like coax bragging out of people, Black women on the show. So I'm glad that you came here to talk shit. I want you to talk a little bit more. Is there a contribution or a piece of work, a piece of creative work or project that you have done that you are most proud of throughout your whole career, and why?
I brought Fashion Week coverage to BET.
Okay.
That's one big thing.
They weren't covering it before.
Huh?
They weren't covering it before.
No.
Wow.
I was named one of the badass 50 women of the year last year in InStyle.
Ooh.
And I wrote recipes for Essence magazine, which are in the 2017 January issue.
Recipes too. You got a little everything going on, a little cooking, a little cannabis, a little style, a little broadcast. Go ahead. I love it. Before we get out of here, are there any Black-owned products or Black-owned services, businesses, anything like that, that you are just really fucking with that you would want to shout out?
Organic Bath Co. by Jillian Doherty, Black woman owned and Black woman made. I'd like to shout out Gorilla RX Wellness Cannabis Dispensary in LA.
Gorilla RX?
Gorilla RX.
Okay.
I'd like to shout out Buy Weed from Women, which is Jasmine Mann's brand.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to shout out my brands, Can Inclusive and Tonic, which is I'm part owner of a CBD company. And I want to shout out, Aretha Franklin, who's no longer with us, but I really like Aretha Franklin.
Yeah. I mean, all we really want is RESPECT at the end of the day. So I think it brings the conversation full circle. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on Black Tea today. I know you got a lot going on. Thank you for carving out a little bit of the workday for me. And for the folks that are watching, it's been a pleasure talking to you and learning more about you.
Same here.
And for everyone out there watching, thank you so much for watching Black Tea. Please go to musebycleo.com/Black Tea to find the rest of the episodes. And make sure you're following us on Instagram so you can keep up with us at Sip Black Tea. And we will see y'all next time.